Using a mobile phone for making your real estate marketing photos, it can be done, but it can be done wrong or it can be done right. If you want to do it right, then you need to watch this video series. Hi, I'm Steve G from Viewing Spaces. Viewing Spaces provides digital and visual marketing services to realtors. We make the best images, videos, virtual tours, and aerial photography. These media assets will improve your listing information and attract more buyers. But this video series is all about how you can make better images yourself than you have been making already, and all on a device you probably already own, your mobile phone. Let's face it, great photos of the house, a virtual tour, a video, and drone shots are all incredibly important for marketing your listing. So if you are not ready to hire a pro, then this video series is for you. I will show you how to make great photos using your mobile phone with little or no cost to you. In this first video of the series, I will introduce you to the basic camera on your mobile phone. I will also introduce you to another option. You might not be aware that you can download alternative camera apps for your mobile phone. Some are free and some include paid upgrades. Either way, the set of features greatly improves your mobile phone's ability to help you make great photos and videos. If you're new to mobile phone cameras, start with the overview of the basic camera and then view the information on the upgraded camera app. So let's get started. So today I'm using my iPhone. It is an iPhone 10, but what I am talking about is relevant to other iPhones and Android phones also. Mobile phones come with a camera built in. The camera includes one or more lenses, an app, which allows you to take the pictures, allows you to edit the pictures, store and deliver the final pictures. But you also know that you can download other camera apps with more features and controls. In this video, I'm going to compare the basic camera app with an upgraded version of an alternative camera app. There are so many features in the alternative camera app that I won't be going into each feature in any detail in this video. Many, but not all of the features are relevant to real estate photography, but there are several which will make a huge difference in the quality of your photos. I will identify the features which are relevant to real estate photography and skip over the others. I'll make another video with a specific focus on this app, go into greater detail about the features and functions and how to use them to make great real estate photos. I'll make other videos also which will focus on composition, editing, post-processing, and other equipment you can buy to make even better photos. Subscribe to the channel and you will be the first to know when I publish these videos. So let's begin our walkthrough of the camera app, which Apple includes with this iPhone. So the first app we're going to go into is this app right here, which is the app that came with the iPhone camera, Basic. All right, I have this in landscape mode. So pro tip is take your pictures in landscape mode, not portrait. You're used to using the phone in portrait mode, but we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be doing all of our pictures in landscape. You want the rooms to look big and wide. So there'll be some nuance in here about some of the controls, but I think we deal with that with no problem. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do is go through the controls on the right side of the screen. You see a lightning bolt. This is off, on, and auto. This is your flash, of course. And it can be useful depending upon the situation, the kind of pictures you're taking, but it also may not be the best approach to the way to use additional lighting. Pro tip again, you have to have great lights in the room to begin with, so turn them all on. We're going to keep the flash on auto for now. Self-timer is the third button down. That could be very useful. I'm on a tripod right now. I'm going to recommend in future videos the use of tripods for certain reasons, for maybe the obvious reasons. But it's useful to have a tripod and use a self-timer. Self-timer can also be used while you're hand-holding, but that's a feature here that can be used. The bottom button and the second button we're not going to touch upon because they're not really related to real estate photography. per se. The bottom one is, I guess in some sense, you can think of it as editing. It's styles. The second button from the top is live view, not relevant. The buttons on the left, which are kind of turned sideways here, you're also very familiar with if you use an iPhone camera for anything. And there's several different options of the types of photography you might be taking. Photos versus videos are the two obvious ones that we would be using for real estate photography. I have it selected for photo. If you select it by sliding it for video, which we're not going to go over in this video at this point, the button becomes red. For photo, it's white. Something to keep an eye on in case you accidentally bump the button. The square button on the top of the screen, that's just the library. Photos are captured, stored in the library. In some cases, you might know it as camera roll. I'm not sure what Android calls it. The bottom button with the little camera icon, you're probably very familiar with, and that's a selfie. Just takes a different, it selects a different camera on the phone versus the front versus the rear-facing camera. And the other button that's available here is this 1x, which becomes 2, which is zoom, which could be useful for real estate if you're trying to capture maybe some features, a chandelier, a faucet, and you want to get in a little tighter. So it's useful. It's not very powerful. It's either 1x or 2x. The other buttons that we're going to look at are settings, which are in the standard location where Apple has all the settings. So go into settings here, and we'll scroll down to camera right there. Okay, so we have just a couple of settings in here, 3 or so that we want to talk about. Formats is something to consider. It's JPEG. JPEG is what you want to upload to the MLS, but that's the only thing it offers you with the basic camera is a JPEG format. High efficiency is a JPEG format. It's just more compressed. It doesn't really do anything different than a JPEG does other than save some storage. There's some video recording options in here. Very briefly, different high definitions, 4K. This will be useful for a future video on video, real estate video, and we can come back to it. The grid is just turning on a grid that's helpful in composition. It's just vertical and horizontal lines on the screen. You don't see it on the pictures. You see it on the screen while you're taking the picture. I'll show it to you in a moment. HDR, which is down here, is high dynamic range. The camera is basically going to take 3 pictures. Underexpose 1, so we can use what would be blown out highlights on those sections of the picture. Underexpose and properly expose, and take the blown out highlights in one, throw it away, take the shadows in the other, throw it away, and combine the 3 best parts of each of those photographs into one. It's great to have high dynamic range. That's how you get those beautiful pictures where you could see the living room and you can look outside and see the trees with a nice view into the garden. You could do it here with this basic camera, but it's very limiting. When I show you the Pro Camera version of this, you'll see how much more powerful it is. All right, let's go back to the grid. I just want to show you that quickly before we wrap up. And there's the grid. Now let's review an alternative camera app. I have tried several different apps on the iPhone, but the one which I use is called Pro Camera. Pro Camera costs around $15 for the basic version, which is great for the real estate related features you need. Let's begin our walkthrough of the Pro Camera app. We're going to go into this other app called Pro Camera, and right away you can see there's an awful lot of features. Looks like there's at least 3 levels of menus here for you to select different options. We're going to go through them very quickly. Let's start from the right. So the flash is this button on the top. Automatic or manual flash. I'm also showing right now on the screen some additional exposure type buttons, controlling ISO, which is how sensitive the sensor is to the light, which gives you some great control. In addition, the speed of the shutter. And you can see when I touch those buttons on the left, buttons open up that allow me to adjust the shutter speed, for example. And you can see I'm making it faster or slower, okay? In addition, there's exposure values. So basically, the camera is going to select an ISO and a shutter speed with the fixed aperture that's built into the lens in this camera, and generate an exposure value that is, well, keep it simple, that is properly exposed. It's limited abilities to deal with the dynamic range, just like any camera would have, but you have the ability to select the exposure value and adjust the output of the photograph by using that button. The bottom button is a selfie, picking the rear-facing or the front-facing camera. Other buttons here on the left that have some relationship to real estate include white balance. White balance is the temperature of the lighting. So if you have a lot of daylight bulbs in the particular house that you're shooting, or you have something more typical with warmer lighting where you get that orange light, you can either set this on auto white balance or actually control the white balance. White balance is measured in Kelvin temperature, and it's flashing on the screen 4,327 was the number, and that can be adjusted. And it gives you truer colors. It's very important. EB is exposure bracketing, which relates to high dynamic range. So you have the ability with this app to adjust the 3 different photographs, whether they're underexposed and overexposed by 1 exposure value or 2 or 3 or something more. So you have greater latitude and control over how you manage the high dynamic range photography here. 1 times or 2 times zoom is what you also see with this other button. On the left, you see the lock. That is also the library, and there's some controls on it for locking it. If for some reason you need to keep it private, if you're sharing the phone with others. And the little camera app is also giving you options for different types of photography, photo, video, portrait, HDR. There's a variety on here. We can go through that in a different video. The shutter button, which is white also, and red would be if it was a video you were trying to take. It's going to change to red, all right? And the icon changes. All right, let's go back to photo. And the button below the big white button is, they call it the second shutter button in the app, and it is an anti-shake button. It could be a self-timer button. It has a couple different functions depending upon what you select in the settings. And it's relevant whether you're using a tripod or you're hand holding. Anti-shake is incredible for getting you more in focus, sharper images of your pictures, of your rooms, all right? This little square button at the bottom with the 9 points on it is your first level of settings. So one of the things that's very valuable for real estate as you get more involved with managing your photography, you may not want to use JPEG. JPEG is what you're going to upload to the MLS. I said that a few moments ago, but you have the choice to select other types of formats. Both formats that are in the camera app from Apple, JPEG and HEIF, but there's some others. And RAW is something that most photographers would use because it gives you more power when you go into editing to try to manage the exposure, colors, white balance, and the list goes on and on. RAW is the way to shoot if you're going to be doing some editing on your own, and that's going to be your choice. For now, we'll keep JPEG. Manual, choosing manual or auto exposure. The second shutter button I mentioned, here's where you turn it on and off, where you have options of using a self-timer or using an anti-shake mechanism. Histogram, that's what you see on the right-hand side here, that little chart. Histogram is incredibly valuable. It lets you know before you take the picture how bright the exposure is going to be, whether it's too dark or too bright or just right. And FE lock is another function that's very important for real estate photography also. You might want to focus on a feature on a coffee table, but there's some really bright lights in the background, so you may want to set your exposure to the background. So let's just go back to the screen. What you see here is these two reticles. One is a circle, that's exposure, and one is focus. So let's say that was a coffee table with some features on it, and you want to make sure that's very sharp. You would move the square one right there, and you would take the exposure back to the bright lights at the window, and you would be able to expose differently. If you wanted the chair to be brighter, you can go in there and expose it for the chair. Go back to, oh, it's turned off, all right? Grids, I mentioned grids. There's 3 or 4 choices of grids you could pick, and you can see them on the screen. And tilt meter. Tilt meter is going to be very important. That is the green reticle, or the green line, the crosshairs in the middle of the screen. It's going to let you know whether your camera is straightly and perfectly aligned to the verticals. One of the things I see all the time with other people, non-professionals taking, maybe even with some professionals taking real estate photography, is they don't get the camera set up perfectly vertical and horizontal. It's not aligned properly to the lines in the room. It's not level. And you get distortions. And what you want to do is make sure that the camera is lined up. It often is a problem when you're holding the camera. You know, for whatever reason, you're tilting the camera up, you're tilting it down, you're tilting it sideways. This is going to help you get it very straight. Now, let's just click on the settings button, because if that wasn't enough settings, we have so many more. Viewfinder settings, how to use your viewfinder. It could make it easier to take some pictures. We'll get into that in detail another time. Stabilization, I've mentioned. Self-timer, I've mentioned. Here's where you can turn on or set up the various options relating to exposure bracketing, HDR settings. There's video mode options in this app. The focus and exposure, how to trigger, whether you just want to use that white button or use the full screen for a trigger, or use your volume buttons for triggers. A lot of these features, while they're not specific to real estate photography, will also help you when you're taking your pictures. And I think for this purpose of this video today, I think this is sufficient introduction to get you to understand that the basic camera app coming with the Apple phone, very limited in features. For just a few dollars, you can upgrade to an app like this, the Pro Camera app, and you have a wide range of features that are going to give you more power, more functionality, make it easier for you to take pictures once you learn what the features do, and more importantly, give you better pictures, help you make better pictures. So that's it for the intro of these 2 apps. If this is at all interesting to you, look for my video on how to use this Pro Camera app in much greater detail. I'll be publishing that very soon. And happy photos. Well, now that we've completed our walkthrough of both camera applications, I want to take a moment and show you 2 pictures, one with the Apple app and another picture taken with the Pro Camera app, and just talk through some of the differences in the results.
Okay, and lastly, I want to give you just a couple of samples. I took a shot of this living room with the Apple Camera app on the left. And it's not an HDR photo. You could see some of that blown out areas. It's hard to see what's outside. It's also blown out because the light's shining very strongly through the windows out of view against the front of the fireplace. You could see that blown out just above on the mantle and on the hearth below. On the right, I took a same picture with the Pro Camera app, and you can really see very nicely the outdoors. You can see the green trees, the vegetation. It looks like a real nice view. It's still bright at the below the hearth, but it's managed. Now, I'll be honest, the picture on the left is a JPEG. The picture on the right was in RAW, and it has minor editing in Lightroom. And if I spent another moment or two, I'd be able to even get rid of more of those highlights in front of the fireplace and brighten up the table and the couch a little bit while still preserving the vegetation through the window to the backyard. So couldn't really do any of that so very well with the Apple Camera app because all I'd be working with is a JPEG, and I'm really limited in any editing program like Lightroom on how much you can control some of the brightness and the differences in the JPEG picture. Anyway, that's the sample. You can see there's a real plus with using the Pro Camera app here, and more of that in a post-processing editing video that I'll do for you in the future too.
Well, that wraps up today's video. I hope you found this video helpful and interesting. If you would like to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. It won't cost you anything, and you will be among the first to know about new videos. Hit the like button. That helps me continue making this content and helps you and others who benefit from these videos. Your comments are always welcome, as your feedback will help me improve and provide the content you are interested in. I hope to see you next time on Viewing Spaces, and that's a wrap.